Ray Fontenot worked in Homicide in St. Landry Parish, Louisiana for 24 years. He has seen things most people will never see. He has sat with grieving families. He has testified in court. He has closed cases that broke him and cases that put him back together. He has done the job the way the job is supposed to be done, by the book, with the evidence, wherever it leads. In those 24 years, there was one case he never talked about. Not because it was unsolved. Not because of legal restrictions. Because of where the evidence led. I called Ray last month. He picked up on the second ring. He said, and I'm quoting him exactly, "I've been waiting for someone to ask." This is the case. Hey, welcome back to Red State Horror. I want to start tonight by saying something about the people in these stories. Ray Fontenot is not a superstitious man. He told me that in the first 5 minutes of our conversation, and he said it the way people say things they've said before many times to people who need to hear them. He is 61 years old. He spent 2 decades in law enforcement. He believes in evidence. He believes in process. He believes that most mysteries have explanations, and that the ones that don't are the ones you haven't looked at hard enough yet. He believed all of that until 2009. Dr. Elaine Marsh is not a superstitious woman either. She is a medical examiner who spent 18 years determining the physical cause of human death, the most literal, most documented, most evidence-based work that exists. She has testified in over 200 cases. She is precise, methodical, and deeply uncomfortable with the conversation we're about to have. She had it anyway, because she told me the alternative was carrying it alone until she didn't have to anymore. And Deputy Sandra Harwell was the kind of law enforcement officer who finished what she started. She worked cold cases in rural Georgia for 9 years. She requested a transfer in the spring of 2021 and left the unit 6 weeks later. She has not talked publicly about why. She talked to me. 3 investigators. 3 cases followed the evidence. Somewhere, the evidence wasn't supposed to go. Let's start with Ray. Story 1. The case Ray Fontenot worked for 11 years. St. Landry Parish, Louisiana, 2009 to 2020. The case started the way most cases start in rural South Louisiana. A call. A location. A body. March of 2009. A man named Teddy Arsenault, 44, was found in the shallow water at the edge of a crawfish pond about 3 miles outside of Opelousas. No obvious cause of death at the scene. No signs of struggle in the surrounding area. No vehicle. No wallet, no phone, no identification on the body. Teddy was identified through his fingerprints. He'd had a minor arrest in his 20s that put him in the system. The medical examiner's preliminary finding was drowning, standard for a body recovered from standing water. The investigation was assigned to Ray as routine. Ray worked it the way he worked everything. Methodically. Thoroughly. He talked to Teddy's family, a sister in Eunice and a grown son in Baton Rouge who hadn't spoken to him in years. He talked to Teddy's neighbors, his drinking companions, and his former employer at a grain facility outside town. Nobody knew why Teddy Arsenault would have been at that crawfish pond. It wasn't his property. He had no connection to it. He didn't fish. He didn't walk for exercise. There was no reason. Not a single person Ray interviewed could give him one, for Teddy to have been at that particular location at whatever time of night he'd ended up there. That happens in investigations. People end up in places without obvious reasons. You keep looking. Ray kept looking. 2 weeks in, the medical examiner amended the preliminary finding. Drowning was still the official cause, but the amended report noted something that made Ray sit with it for a long time. Fluid analysis inconsistent with drowning in standing water at the recovery site. Fluid composition suggests prior immersion in a different water source before the final recovery location. Source of primary immersion not identified. Teddy Arsenault had drowned somewhere else, then ended up in the crawfish pond. That changes the geography of everything, Ray told me. It means there's a primary scene I haven't found. It means somebody moved him. It changes it from a drowning to a homicide, most likely. I start over. He started over. He mapped every body of water within a 10-mile radius. He pulled water samples from 11 locations and had them analyzed against the fluid composition in the ME's report. 10 of them came back negative. The 11th location was a natural sinkhole about 6 miles east of the recovery site. A limestone depression that filled seasonally on private land that had been fallow for decades. The water composition was a near match. Ray drove out to it. What he found when he got there is the part of the story that took him the longest to tell me. We had been talking for over an hour before he got to it. I could feel him working up to it. The careful, practiced way someone approaches a thing they've described before only in their own head. The sinkhole is real, he said. I can show you on a map. You can drive out there. It exists. What I'm about to tell you is documented in my personal notes, which I kept separate from the official case file. Because what I found out there is not something I could write into a report without it being the end of my career. He paused. I'm okay with that now. I'm retired. But I wasn't okay with it then. He told me he arrived at the sinkhole in the late afternoon. He parked on the access road and walked in through the fallow field. The sinkhole was about 40 feet across, maybe 6 feet deep at the center, ringed with cypress knees and sedge grass. The water was the right color, the right composition for the match. And around the entire perimeter of the sinkhole, in a circle too precise to be accidental, somebody had placed stones. Not a scatter, not a natural accumulation. A deliberate ring, 63 stones, Ray counted them, each approximately the same size, placed at even intervals going all the way around. He photographed them. He documented them. He took a sample from 2 of the stones that showed what looked like a reddish residue. It came back as iron oxide, normal mineral deposit. He looked for footprints, tire tracks, and any evidence of recent human presence. Found nothing. He came back the next week, and the week after that. Over the next 11 years, Ray returned to that sinkhole 41 times. He documented every visit in his personal notebook. The stone circle was always there. The number was always 63. He moved stones on 3 separate visits, placed them outside the ring, repositioned them, and in one case, took 2 stones home with him. The next time he returned, the circle was complete. All 63. In position. I set up a camera, he told me. Motion activated, ran it for 6 weeks. I drove out there every Friday morning to check the footage. In 6 weeks, that camera captured exactly 4 triggered events. 2 deer, 1 raccoon, and 1 unknown. The unknown event was at 3:14 in the morning, on a Thursday in October 2014. Something moved in front of that camera. The footage shows exactly 8 seconds of static. Not darkness. Not an animal moving through the frame. Static. Like a transmission failing. And when I walked the site that morning, the 2 stones I'd moved the week before were back in position. Teddy Arsenault's case is officially classified as undetermined. The homicide investigation was suspended in 2017 due to the lack of viable leads. Ray filed that classification. He closed the official file. He has never told anyone what he found at the sinkhole. He told me, I worked homicides for 24 years, he said. I always believed the evidence would take you somewhere that made sense. This case took me somewhere that made sense in a way I didn't have a language for. Something happened at that sinkhole. Something left Teddy Arsenault in that crawfish pond. And whatever it was went back to that sinkhole and put those stones back every time I moved them for 11 years until I retired. He was quiet for a moment. I moved the stones one more time on my last visit. The day I retired. Just to see. I asked, did they go back? I drove out there a month later, he said. 63 stones. All in position. Another pause. I don't go back anymore. I think it knows I'm done. I think we have an understanding. Okay, real quick, and I mean it when I say this. If this story is landing for you, you are exactly who this channel is built for. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell. I put a story like this out every single Thursday. You don't want to be the person who finds Red State Horror 2 years from now and has to catch up. The second story tonight is from a medical examiner in Mississippi. She amended the cause of death twice. Then she stopped amending it. Stay with me. Story 2. What Dr. Elaine Marsh put in the file. Hinds County, Mississippi, amended 2013, 2015, closed 2016. Dr. Elaine Marsh worked as a medical examiner in Hinds County, Mississippi for 18 years. She is 57 now, still working, still precise in the way that people who have spent their careers making definitive determinations about physical reality are precise. She spoke to me for 90 minutes. She asked me not to identify the case by the victim's name. I'm honoring that. The case came to her in the summer of 2012. A young woman, in her early 30s, was found at her home in a rural area outside Raymond, Mississippi. No signs of foul play at the scene. No apparent trauma. The preliminary assessment from the responding officers. Natural causes. Possible cardiac event. Dr. Marsh's initial finding confirmed no external trauma. She filed the cause of death as cardiac arrhythmia, pending toxicology. Toxicology came back clean. No substances, no medications, nothing that would explain a cardiac event in a healthy 31-year-old woman with no prior cardiac history. Dr. Marsh requested a second autopsy, performed it herself. She was looking for something she'd missed. An underlying condition, a vascular anomaly, an anatomical explanation for the arrhythmia. She found none. In 2013, she amended the cause of death. Amendment 1, filed March 2013, cause of death amended from cardiac arrhythmia to undetermined. A cardiac event cannot be explained by anatomical findings or toxicology. Contributory cause, unknown. Standard procedure for cases where the physical evidence doesn't support the initial finding. Dr. Marsh moved on to other cases, the way you have to. Except she didn't fully move on. She told me she kept coming back to the file. Something about the secondary autopsy findings had been sitting in the back of her mind, something she hadn't written into any report because she didn't know how to write it in a way that would survive peer review. There was a pattern in the tissue, she told me, choosing every word carefully. In the cardiac muscle specifically, not damage consistent with arrhythmia, not necrosis consistent with infarction. A different pattern, something I had seen once before, in a case I worked early in my career in Alabama, and had never been able to explain then either. I pulled the Alabama file. I compared the tissue photographs. The pattern was identical. 2 women, different ages, different locations, 9 years apart. The same pattern in the cardiac muscle. No known pathology produces it. Nothing in the literature, nothing in any database I could access. She stopped. I contacted 3 colleagues at other institutions. Described the pattern without sharing the photographs to see if any of them recognized it independently. None of them did. I then shared the photographs. None of them had seen it before. At that point, I had a choice. I could write a case study, submit it to a journal, and try to enter it into the medical literature. Or I could understand that submitting something for which there is no explanation is an act that tends to end careers more often than it advances them. She paused. I have a family, she said. I made the practical choice. In 2015, she amended the file again. Amendment 2, filed September 2015, additional notation. Cardiac tissue findings do not correspond to any documented pathological pattern in the current literature. The cause of death remains undetermined. No further investigation recommended. In the language of a medical examiner's report, that phrase carries weight. It means I have looked as far as I can look, and the looking is not going to produce an answer. Stop here. She closed the file in 2016. She has not reopened it. I think about those 2 women, she told me near the end of our conversation. They were 9 years and 3 states apart, and whatever ended their lives left the same mark on their hearts. The same mark. I don't know what made it. I don't know if anyone does. I don't know if it has a name. She was quiet. But it has a pattern, she said. It leaves the same pattern. That means it's consistent. That means it's real. And nothing real is inexplicable forever. Somebody will explain it eventually. Another pause. I hope it's not me. You know what I love about the people who listen to this channel? You stay. Most people click away from the thing that unsettles them. You lean in. That's who this is built for. If someone in your life would sit with a story like this, send them this video. Share it. Let's build this community one person at a time. The third story tonight is the one that took me the longest to get. Deputy Sandra Harwell worked cold cases for 9 years. She left in 6 weeks. Here's what she found. Story 3. What Deputy Harwell found on the property. Eccles County, Georgia. Cold Case Unit, 2020 to 2021. Eccles County is the least populated county in Georgia. About 3,700 people are spread across 404 square miles of flat South Georgia piney woods, swamp, and farmland. It sits right on the Florida line. The county seat is Statenville. If you've never heard of it, that's not surprising. Most Georgians haven't either. Deputy Sandra Harwell was assigned to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Cold Case Unit in 2012. She worked cases across the state, but she told me that Eccles County came up in her caseload more than its population would suggest. Small counties with limited original investigation resources, she explained, tend to have disproportionate cold case backlogs. The work that should have been done the first time around wasn't, and by the time it gets to a unit like hers, the trail is old. In the fall of 2020, she was assigned a cold case from Eccles County. A missing persons report filed in 1994, a 16-year-old named Marcus Tate, who had walked into the woods behind his family's property one afternoon and not come back. The original investigation lasted 2 weeks. Nobody was found. No leads developed. The case had been inactive since 1995. Sandra's assignment was routine. Review the original file, assess whether any modern investigative tools might move it forward, close with a recommendation, or reactivate with a plan. She drove down to Eccles County in October 2020 to walk the property. The Tate family home was still there, occupied by Marcus's now elderly mother, who had stayed in that house for 26 years. Partly, Sandra told me, because she still believed her son might come back to it. Sandra walked the property with the mother's permission. The woods behind the house were second-growth pine, dense but navigable. She walked a standard grid pattern. She was alone. She had been in the woods for about 40 minutes when she found the first marker. A piece of surveyor's flagging tape, faded orange, tied to a pine branch at approximately eye level. Not unusual in itself. Surveyors work in these woods. Hunters mark trails. But this tape was tied in a specific way she couldn't immediately explain. Not a simple loop, a knot pattern she didn't recognize. She documented it. Kept walking. She found a second piece of tape 40 yards further in. Same knot, same faded orange. Same height. Then a third. A fourth. She documented each one, photographed each one, and noted the GPS coordinates. By the time she reached the edge of the property, she had found 11 pieces of tape, all in a rough line extending northeast from behind the Tate house. All the same knot. She ran the GPS coordinates when she got back to her vehicle. The line of markers, if extended northeast, pointed to a second piece of land about a quarter-mile from the Tate property. An old farmstead, vacant since the 1980s. She went back the next morning. "I want to be careful how I describe what I found out there," she told me. We had been on the phone for over an hour, and she had been careful the whole time. Measured, factual, almost judicial in the way she presented information. Because I know how it's going to sound. And I spent a long time deciding whether I was going to tell anyone. The farmstead had a structure still standing. An old barn, mostly collapsed. A farmhouse, also partially collapsed. And a tree line on the north edge of the property. Maybe 20 pine trees in a rough row, the way a windbreak gets planted. The trees had markings on them. I asked what kind of markings. "Carved," she said. Into the bark. Each tree, not recent carvings, deep in the bark, healed over, the wood grown around them. I photographed all of them. I had the photographs analyzed by a forensic arborist, who dates carved marks by the growth pattern around them. Her assessment: the carvings were made approximately 25 to 30 years ago. She said that within the margin of error, they could be as recent as 1993 or as old as 1998. I did the math. 1994. The year Marcus Tate walked into the woods and didn't come back. "What were the carvings?" I asked. She paused for a long moment. "That's what I'm not going to describe," she said. Not because I'm trying to be dramatic. Because I showed the photographs to 3 people I trust, and all 3 of them had the same reaction I had, which is that some things are better left unshared. I will tell you this. They weren't letters. They weren't numbers. They weren't anything I recognized from any cultural or religious tradition I could identify, and I spent 3 months trying. I filed my case review. I recommended the case remain inactive. I requested a transfer to a different unit 4 weeks later. In 26 years, that was the only time I didn't put everything in the file. I asked her, does she believe Marcus Tate is still alive? She took a long breath. "No," she said. "I don't. I think he went into those woods in 1994, and he found whatever had been leaving those markers for his family to find. And I think whatever it was, it's still on that property. I hope nobody else goes looking for it." 3 investigators. 24 years of combined case experience between them. People trained and paid and trusted to follow the evidence wherever it goes and to write down what they find. All 3 of them hit a wall they couldn't write into a report. Ray Fontenot drove out to a Louisiana sinkhole 41 times and never found a human explanation for what was there. He retired and made his peace with it. Dr. Elaine Marsh found the same mark on 2 hearts, 9 years and 3 states apart, and chose her family over her curiosity. She is still choosing it. Sandra Harwell found something carved into 20 trees on a vacant property in the least populated county in Georgia and decided some things are better left unshared. She left the unit. She hasn't gone back. What I keep coming back to is this. These are not people who scare easily. These are people who chose, as a profession, to look directly at the most disturbing things human beings do to each other, and to do that work without flinching, because someone has to. They are not prone to imagination. They are not given to exaggeration. They have spent their careers being the last line between what happened and what gets officially said about what happened. And all 3 of them decided, independently, that there was something they could not put into an official record. That tells me something. I'm not sure exactly what, but I trust their judgment more than I trust my own ability to explain it away. If you've worked a case, law enforcement, medicine, investigation of any kind, and you have something that didn't make it into the official file, I want to hear from you. Drop it in the comments. Or find me. This channel exists for exactly that. This is Red State Horror. I'll see you next Thursday.